who thinks that they like campaigning because, you know, it's all touchy-feely and it's nice and happy and, okay, it's all numbers. Just let's start to understand that it's all numbers. In order to do a good campaign, in order to have a successful campaign, it needs to be well planned out. Too often, I'm called in because your campaign gets close. They start to think, you might win. This is what we could do. And I get called in because they're not certain that things are ready. And so I show up and I say, okay, so what's the campaign plan? Where's the field plan? And the campaign manager will look at me and go, yeah, we have one of those. I think it's in that filing cabinet in the back room. It's probably under like all the papers. It might be in the third file drawer. I think we've got one of those. Just let me find it. Okay, that's a problem. The campaign plan needs to be written down. It needs to be finite. It needs to be quantifiable, and it needs to be revised and used. Now, part of this is the bus philosophy. If somebody gets hit, if the campaign manager gets hit by a bus, who's going to be able to continue on, right? Okay, so part of it's that. But the other piece is that if you don't have finite goals, you cannot tell whether you're moving towards them. So it is not enough that you want to have more votes. How many is more? How many do you need? So one of the first things in a field plan is a vote goal. So first we want to have the goal. The goal is to win, yes. But how many do you need to win? And so what we do here, first we have our goals. Inside of the goals we have strategies. So how are we going to get that number of votes? Are we going to spend our entire campaign blogging, and therefore we're going to get all of our all of our votes? Or are we going to use some other tried and true, wonderful tactics like canvassing or phone banking? Are we going to, and then you have so you have your strategies, you have your tactics. Strategies and tactics, I move it back and forth, I'm sorry. They get really excited about both of them. The idea is that they're fairly similar. We'll call those things tactics also. Timelines. Okay, it's not enough to say we're going to win and therefore we need to have all this done before Election Day. Okay? Because what ends up happening is you don't judge yourself. You don't use these benchmarks if you don't have it on a timeline. So if, for example, you need 400 votes, you might not wait until the last day to get all 400 of your votes. You might want to know who, so you might want to say, okay, I'm going to find 100 votes every weekend. And if you don't get 100 votes the first weekend, your benchmark was not met. So what are we going to do? So you want to have all these pieces in your campaign plan.
And I want to tag on a bit, because I'll talk more about the importance of timelines and benchmarks this afternoon when I talk about planning. But they are really what separates out a really professionally run field plan from others that are trying to do right but haven't really planned everything out. Having a timeline for when you need to have, how many volunteers recruited, how many doors have you knocked on, how many voters, supporters have you positively identified by the end of August, by the end of September, by the end of October. You've got to have those benchmarks so you know whether or not your plan is working. And if it's not working, so you know far enough in advance that you can take whatever steps, whatever corrections to get yourself back on track to hitting your goal. So those timelines and benchmarks are really critically important.